Hi everybody. Welcome to Name That Literary Device. Please read and discover the analyzed text of Living Like Weasels by Annie Dillard. A weasel is wild. Who knows what he thinks? He sleeps in his underground den, his tail draped over his nose. Sometimes he lives in his den for 2 days without leaving. Outside, he stalks rabbits, mice, muskrats, and birds, killing more bodies than he can eat warm, and often dragging the carcasses home. Obedient to instinct, he bites his prey at the neck, either splinting the jugular vein at the throat or crunching the brain at the base of the skull, and he does not let go. One naturalist refused to kill a weasel who was socketed into his hand deeply as a rattlesnake. The man could in no way pry the tiny weasel off, and he had to walk half a mile to water, the weasel dangling from his palm, and soaked him off like a stubborn label. "And once," said Ernest Thomas Seton, "once, a man shot an eagle out of the sky. He examined the eagle and found the dry skull of a weasel fixed by the jaws to his throat. The supposition is that the eagle had pounced on the weasel, and the weasel swiveled and bit as instinct taught him, tooth to neck, and nearly won. I would like to have seen that eagle from the air a few weeks or months before he was shot. Was the whole weasel still attached to his feathered throat, a fur pendant, or did the eagle eat what he could reach, gutting the living weasel with his talons before his breast, bending his beak, cleaning the beautiful airborne bones? I have been reading about weasels because I saw one last week. I started a weasel who startled me, and we exchanged a long glance. Living Like Weasels is a personal narrative written by an American writer, Annie Dillard. Comparing the lives of weasels and the lives of people reveals an interesting perception. It appears that the writer was so intrigued by the encounter with a weasel until she wanted to learn more about weasels. She studied the behavior. So when we look at the title, Living Like Weasels, we see that the consonants at the beginning of living and like are L's. So that tells us the literary device is alliteration. We also see the word like to compare the lives of humans with the lives of weasels. So that tells us that the comparison using the word like here would be a simile. The expression tooth to neck really stood out for me, because if there is a description that would explain how a person would behave like a weasel, would be tooth to neck. To say, always be ready, no matter what. So the writer speaks of the weasel as a predator. If a weasel needs food, he hunts for his food. Later on, the writer will discuss the weasel as being the prey itself, being attacked by a predator. Even so, if the weasel is attacked, the weasel will behave in a certain way. Now, what is that way? The way the weasel behaves when he hunts for food is tooth to neck. He goes for the neck, to bite the neck. If he's being attacked the same behavior, tooth to neck. Focusing on what he needs to survive. Is it possible we could do that? Could we be like the weasel? Well, humans are not naturally instinctual. But we could learn, couldn't we? That sounds like an oxymoron. Instincts and learning. I think a person has to focus on what he really wants or what she really wants in life. Focus on that one thing without using the mind, without thinking so much. Perhaps another oxymoron. However, we understand we are not innate like the animals. So how do we become that way? Well, I believe a person has to plan, practice on the one thing he or she wants in life until it becomes natural, instinctual. This encounter that the writer has with the weasel, it seems to cause the writer to reevaluate her life. New opportunities can give people a chance to improve themselves. We can start today to live a life on purpose to achieve any goal, one goal at a time. I notice in the writing, and perhaps you notice also, that the writer never refers to the weasel using the pronoun it. She uses he, and she uses also the relative pronoun who when referring to the weasel. What does that tell us? It says that the writer has high regard for the weasel. Possibly this encounter was life-changing. Let's continue by playing a game. Name that literary device.